gonna do a full.
Beautiful. It's lovely. Um, well, welcome to the podcast, Josh. It's good to see you. And for listeners, Josh is a really interesting, creative guitarist who does all sorts of wacky, explosive improvisations. Like I feel like explosive is like the adjective that comes to mind. Like there's something very I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah. Uh, I don't know if you agree with that, but we can get into that in a second. What's your coffee drinking like these days?
my coffee. Well, here's what I do. Um, I love coffee so much.
Totally.
Um, I I'm I met somebody down here in the LA River when I just set up to start practicing. Because when I moved to LA, I had nowhere to practice, and his name is Greg. He calls himself Tristero, and he roasts coffee, and
Right.
he's really rad. And he I usually get a bag of beans from him. He roasts in downtown LA now, and I usually get a bag of beans from him every week. And then every other week, I pick up a bag of Heart Roasters from Portland beans. And I've
Nice.
just been making pour overs at home using a V60.
Beautiful.
In fact, yeah. And
Uh,
those are my two favorite roasters, Heart and Tristero.
Tristero. Oh, cool. Yeah, I've heard of that now that I think of it. Rad. Cool. What's their coffee like? Or like, what type of coffees do they have, or does he have?
Right now, I'm sipping on an Ethiopia Guji that he roasted. He's into tons of really crazy experimental naturals that use like new processes and stuff. But I used to love naturals, but now I just like washed. But
Okay.
um, but he's kind of on his own journey. But he's like a super into tasting. Like he's always sipping on things and tasting different wild beers and stuff. So, but he doesn't seem to care what anybody else is doing as far as roasting, and so he's kind of on his own path. And so it just tastes way different to me than other roasters in a really exciting way.
Awesome. Cool. I'll have to scope out
Possibly
his.
possibly a little darker
I
than some of
support
these
that.
guys. I don't know.
Man, so I feel like with coffee, I used to want to taste all the weird things, but now I'm just kind of like I just want something that is reliably delicious and satisfying to my coffee needs. Do you like the weird stuff too, or do you? I mean, you said you don't like naturals as much. Are you into like the normal
Well,
stuff or?
I was gonna ask you about that because you're the one that tipped me off onto just drinking coffee instead of espresso
Hmm.
because you felt like there was more nuance and subtleties to the flavor. So ever since I met you, which was probably like six or 7 years ago,
Hmm.
I mostly just been drinking actual coffee, and everybody's into African coffees and stuff. But guess what? Every time I drink a South American coffee, I just love it because to me it tastes even extra balanced, maybe a little
Right,
bit
right,
mellower, but super like balanced and just delicious. But
right.
but still, most of the time I'm honestly sipping on like Kenyans or Ethiopians. But I love South American coffees too.
Yeah,
And I
I feel
wonder,
like
I was going to ask you, is that characteristic of South American? Are they usually like a little more balanced and less
yeah, I would say so.
outrageous?
Like in my mind, Honduras is always like very balanced and still has some nice nuance and like just always like a nice overt like vanilla flavor. Um, Coffees from
Mm,
Brazil though are like very like heavy bodied, so it's like maybe balanced but like a little bit uninteresting, but also just like like there's so much weight and body and thickness to it. Um,
whoa.
yeah, like other places like Bolivia has really crazy coffees because they have such high elevation, and so you get like these crazy coffees where like because it's high up enough, it like affects the way that the sugars in the soil produce, and so you get like a lot of complexity. But yeah, like the Colombias, like I always love Colombian coffee, and like I don't know, have you had like Mexican coffee like from Oaxaca?
No, but that's my favorite place on earth because I mix mezcal too.
Nice. Yeah.
um, Whoa. Okay. So I overgeneralized when I just said South America. That's cool. I think the ones that I have been sipping on usually were like Honduras or Guatemala.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like Hondo, Guatemala, and Colombia are like, to me that's like balanced central. Like everything's like gonna be so even. And then like if you get to like
Okay.
El
Okay. Cool.
Salvador, Panama, it's like a little bit more like strange and interesting. But I mean, I'm also overgeneralizing,
Okay.
so I feel like somebody else would like be even more specific. But whatever. Um, cool, man.
Oh,
Well,
I'm loving this.
how would you say coffee influences your practice as a musician? Like, are you like David Lynch, where it's like kind of always influencing what you're doing, or is it just like giving you the fuel to do what you need to do?
No, I don't think of it as fuel, but I'm in very much into kind of the experience of
Mm-hmm.
it. Almost like almost like an experience of imagination. Like I just love to smell the coffee for a long time, like 5 minutes, and just see where my imagination takes me.
Nice.
I just try to think of descriptive words, whatever comes to my mind, and then I'll take a sip, and then I don't know, I just try to imagine things, and so it's kind of to me, it's kind of an exercise in imagination.
Beautiful. I love that.
It's kind of an important part of my daily routine, and I can only handle 1 cup a day without going crazy.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever feel like it messes with your
Caffeine.
your guitar chops? Like, does it ever make you too jittery to like play accurately?
No, no. But if I skip coffee, I do get kind of a headache. So I guess I am addicted to that 1 cup a day.
Yeah, fair, fair. Um, cool, man. It's that makes me think. Alfred, right? Like Daedalus. He's
Yeah.
the big coffee dude, and like I feel like it's essential to his like workflow to just get that like morning jolt. And he talks about something similar, like a state of wonderment, and I love that idea. Just like finding excitement and everything, and yeah, the imaginal stuff is beautiful. Um, cool, man. Well, we don't have to keep on talking about coffee this whole time.
Cool.
Uh,
I could talk all day about coffee.
so you're down by you said under the two freeway, and this is like your spot. When did this become your spot?
Well, to tell you the truth, this is honestly my second favorite spot.
Oh shit.
But when I moved to Los Angeles 8 years ago, I had no gigs and no nothing really. I was just looking for a place to practice,
Mm-hmm.
and I just thought that over in Atwater Village, Red Car River Park, down in the LA River, like I had kind of peeked over the side of the road down there and thought it looked interesting. So one day I just kind of walked down there with my banjo and just started practicing down there. And this was 8 years ago. A lot has changed in 8 years. It
Mm-hmm.
was still, I mean, for me coming from Utah, it felt a little bit scary to me. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
But I started practicing my banjo there, and I met some really cool people. I met a bunch of artists, started playing there, started rehearsing with my band down there. It kind of turned into a fun thing, and there used to be a lot of kind of like gang guys hanging out there, and they would throw their bottles not at me, but to the side of me. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that maybe that was their way of letting me know that I was okay.
Okay, I like that.
so,
They weren't trying to
so
intimidate you or anything.
I don't think they were trying to hurt me. I think they were just trying to let me know this is our spot, but you're welcome to practice your
Nice,
banjo.
cool, man.
And we've never had any problems. And the other day I was practicing down there. I still practice down here and I still played shows down here. But the other day, one guy came up to me, it looked really rough, and he said, I just want to thank you for all of your hard work, and I just want you to know that me and the guys appreciate what you do.
Dude, that's so
And they're like,
great,
it's not easy doing what you do. I
man. So so the
was
spot
really
in
happy.
Atwater, that spot in Atwater is your favorite then, or
Yeah, Red Car River Park. That's where I kind of like started and met some really nice people and stuff. And then I met an artist named Projected Visions. He calls himself Ryan Patrick Griffin, and he does these projections. And he invited me to come play under here, under the two. And well, everybody sits along there, and we set up along here. And he does these giant projections on this huge, huge, huge wall. It's hard to tell how big it is probably from this screen, but it's huge.
nice?
And at nighttime, we do these shows. We bring generators and stuff and batteries. And he does these giant projections on the wall. And that's probably my favorite reason to be in LA is to do these shows. It's so much fun.
Man, that's awesome. Do you feel like, I mean, like that's such a specific environment, and like it's almost like I feel like it's almost an instrument in your ensemble. Like, does it play into your playing like that? Like, does it contribute some sort of extra thing to the music?
Yeah, yeah. I forgot how loud it is, but as the cars go over, you can probably really loud right now.
That's
But
pretty.
as the cars go over, it sounds like waves, and it's really really echoey down here too, but not too echoey. That definitely contributes to the sound.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted you to see my guitar too. My friend Ryan made this guitar for me.
Oh yeah, lovely. Um, when you go down there to shed and stuff, do you bring your amp and all, or just the guitar?
Yeah, I mean, usually what I do is I bring my full setup. Like I'm gonna like, and I say practice, but really it's always more like an actual performance. And I usually post it on my Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
and there's people coming out. And so the I call it a practice, but really it's more like a performance.
Mm-hmm.
And really the only practicing I do these days is just like preparation work, like learning a song or preparing backup tracks
Mm-hmm.
to use.
Gotcha.
And I love to do that. I love to take little samples and stuff from current top 40 songs and
Totally.
implement those, and sometimes add orchestral sounds to them.
It's funny. I was like just fiddling around the apartment today, and I came across this. And I was like, oh shit!
Ah!
What perfect timing! Like a few hours before I talked to you. So yeah, I mean, I love that. Like you have these. Like I feel like your approach is like it reminds me of standards, but you're playing things that are relevant to people today. And like I've always been bothered by people who are like, let's play Stella by Starlight, and it's like, oh, that song that was on the radio when you weren't born. Like I feel like taking like a Jay Z song or like a Frank Ocean song or whatever that's like a lot more relevant and it's still essentially a standard. So is that how you think of it, or any amendments to that?
Yeah, actually, yes. In fact, one time I was curious about that very, very topic that you're talking about, because I call what I do, I just call it jazz. But
Mm-hmm.
people, some of my friends and stuff are sort of like, no, you're not jazz. But I still just call it straight up jazz. So I looked at like one of the albums I really loved listening to when I was younger, Portraits in Jazz by Bill Evans.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at every song on that album, and I don't think there was one song that was older than 20 years
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
before the album was recorded. And so like if I wanted to do an album like that right now, that means I'd have no songs, no standards on my album that are older than 2001.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that lines up.
So I feel like I'm just absolutely just trying to do what all my heroes have always done.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, cool. So, tell me more about this, about these environments that you planned, because I've unfortunately yet to go to one of your shows at the river, but I've seen all these things of you on Instagram, and it's such a vibe, man. Like, there's, like you're out in the open air. There's water nearby. Like, you're with the elements. Like, how does that influence things?
Well, there's something about being in a city that's as dense as LA, that to have discovered this LA river that's just, like there's nobody
Hmm.
right now, just me out here, to find this weird place that's so huge and open. And I just sneak down here. It's this feeling of, and especially when we do a show, it's like this feeling of freedom, that this feeling of freedom that I've never felt in my whole life. I did fall in love with playing in the street back in Salt Lake City, and I lived in New York City for 3 years, around 2000 to 2001, or let me see, 1999 to 2002, I guess, maybe something like that.
Hmm.
But I played in the subway, and I love to play in the subway. So I've always had a love for playing in the street. But there's something special about the LA River that even takes it to another level,
Hmm.
especially when we do these shows, because it just feels like kind of feel the sense of freedom that I've never felt before. A sense of not really adhering to regular laws and stuff, maybe. Like I'm
Hmm.
just like a citizen of Earth, not a citizen of this country or this city, or I don't know. It just
Hmm.
feels really cool. It feels kind of like anarchy, maybe. I don't know. I
Cool, man. Well, I
don't
mean,
know
I
if
feel
that's
like,
the right word, but it just feels really cool. A feeling that I've never felt, a feeling of freedom that I've never really felt before.
I mean, I feel like anarchy is such a big umbrella term, but like that, I feel like meshes with me describing your playing as explosive. Like there's something like anarchic in the best sense. It's yeah, very liberated, very expressive, and so yeah, I love that. That's your like environment, man. Um, I'm sort of curious about your like musical background because we've known each other for a good long while, but I feel like I've never gotten to know about your musical history, like whether it's influences growing up or like what your sort of like background. Like, are you self-taught? Did you have teachers? Sort of curious about any of that.
Well, when I was, my dad plays guitar and is kind of sing, or a really wonderful singer songwriter, and he taught me how to play a bunch of chords on the guitar and stuff. But my mom got me, when I was like 11 years old. She got me hooked up with guitar lessons from the local university professor,
Mm-hmm.
and it was classical guitar lessons.
Oh, we're,
And my teacher was really awesome, really good classical guitarist named Larry Green at BYU in Provo, Utah. And he had a picture of Jimi Hendrix burning his guitar on his office wall.
nice.
So he kind of like taught me a little bit of rock on the side, and jazz too. He taught me jazz, rock, and classical all together from a pretty young age.
Mm-hmm.
And but as I was growing up, I listened to the jazz radio station. And I was lucky enough to have some really cool friends who were really into jazz. I just kind of fell in love, head over heels, with jazz, like big time. And I
Mm-hmm.
just, my three biggest heroes were probably Lester Young, Coleman Hawkins, and Ben Webster for the longest time. And I love anything Miles Davis I've ever heard, of course. But then one day I heard Charles Mingus, and
Mm-hmm.
that changed my life when I heard Charles Mingus, because Charles Mingus just had that sense of urgency, that sense of sort of like now,
Mm-hmm.
that I had never really heard before, kind of like rock and roll almost.
Totally.
And I loved that. And I of course fell in love with John Coltrane, especially like his
Right.
later stuff. Fell in love with that.
Mm-hmm.
But Charles Mingus is kind of my biggest, had the biggest kind of impact on me, I'd say, when I discovered him.
Nice. So, I mean, it's interesting. I feel like I'm also not the type of person that's really like. Of course, I love jazz guitarists and the whole thing, but like, I definitely would like pick horn players or drummers or piano players before guitarists. Are there any guitarists, or have you always been sort of like more into like horn players?
No, I was always, you're right. I was always more drawn to horn players and composers and stuff. Oh, I love modern classical music too. Like Morton Feldman is my favorite.
Oh hell yeah, cool.
And oh, and when I'm driving around, I'm always just listening to classical radio. But as far as guitar players go, I was lucky enough to hear Nils Klein's
Mm-hmm.
trio in Salt Lake City around must have been like 1998 or something. And oh my gosh, he just blew the roof off of this tiny little venue in Salt Lake City called Kilby Court. He That was one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life. Period.
Wow. Yeah.
At the moment I was thinking like, holy, this is the John Coltrane of guitar.
Yeah, he does a version of Interstellar Space, right? On guitar,
I think so. Yeah,
which is like that's a
I
real.
haven't actually heard it, but
Hmm. I think I got it a while ago, and like I was like, this is going to require like me sitting down and paying a lot of attention. um, so was that trio with like Tim Byrne and stuff, or like the alto player, or do you recall?
dang, I can't. It was an upright bass player and a drummer, but I can't remember their names.
Okay,
So long ago,
cool.
but it was amazing what he was doing with his pedals and stuff. It was it was just absolutely insane. I
Yeah,
can't believe it.
yeah. I feel like he's like. I was actually telling my wife today, just like how I have a little bit of like a like an old cranky guy attitude about pedals. You know, I'm like, you need to learn how to play without pedals first. But like Nels Klein, like yeah, that dude in particular, he is a mature pedal user. He's smart as hell about like everything's like so creative and cool man. So you were studying with what was his name? Who Green was the classical guy, guitar guy.
Larry,
Larry Green.
his name was Larry Green.
Cool, cool.
Yeah.
Um, nice. So, do you still play any classical stuff at all, or mostly electric?
No, I don't, and as, I don't. And the only like straight ahead jazz I do is as I'm grinding my coffee beans. I have a Lido 3 grinder, and as I'm grinding my coffee beans, it takes me like 90 seconds or something. As I'm turning the dial,
Hmm.
I think a rhythm change is like, so that's my only. I do 90 seconds of rhythm changes practice every day in my head.
I love that. That's hilarious.
just
Um,
just to just to honor the 12-year-old, 15-year-old me that still loves straight ahead jazz.
hmm.
There's somebody.
Is that a homie?
That's Rollers. Rollers. Yeah, he rolls by every time I do a show. That it was just a coincidence he's riding by.
Nice. Um, cool. So, let's see here. I guess,
What about you? Do you do any straight ahead guitar practicing anymore?
I mean, like, I feel like I wouldn't say straight ahead,
I
but
know
like,
you freaking shred.
I was just thinking of how we're like so like while we get along so well, and I feel like we have affinities for each other's music. We're very different because I'm like, you're saying like you basically will just like practice what you're gonna be playing, or like it's like practice is kind of a performance, and for me, I feel like I'm just like got to work on this inversion. Like it's very like I'm just trying to learn every single word from the dictionary instead of like speak sentences, if you will. So like it's a weirdly different approach. That's a lot more sort of Ben Monder than it is. But yeah, I don't really play standards or anything. I know my like three standards. Like I can play Have You Met Miss Jones very well and something like that. But not much straight ahead now. Yeah, mostly technique and just like uh, trying to expand my chord vocabulary.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but I should actually I should do things that are actually performative. Yeah. So I mean, something else that some people will like find if they see you playing is that you have the craziest gear setup, and was curious what your journey was with that because like everything's like very very your own. It's like your amp looks like some sort of like space refrigerator, and like uh, you have like a very modded out guitar, and like I've seen you with a bow, and like putting your cell phone up to your pickups, like a lot of extended sort of wacky stuff. So how did that develop?
It just sort of happened over the years. I slowly started, I've always had my phone in my pocket, and there's so many fun little apps that, neat little synthesizers or noise sounds and stuff. And I just started holding up my phone next to my guitar pickup for those just for fun. But then I just started getting more and more into that. And now, almost on every song, I sing the choruses through the Payne app.
Like an auto
To
tuning.
auto tune my voice. And I hold it up to my guitar. So, I'm holding my guitar up like this.
Uh-huh.
And I'm holding my phone up here. But that's kind of become my thing. But the guy who built my guitar is my old best friend from high school, and his name's Ryan Thorell, and it's Thorell, and he's become a world famous guitar builder,
Nice.
and he's based out of Logan, Utah. But he built this guitar. My first guitar was a Gibson ES 125 that also had no cutaway. So I've always loved arch top jazz guitars that don't have a cutaway.
Mm-hmm.
I've always just felt really comfortable to me. But my amplifier was built by actually my brother's best friend. His name is Josh Stippick, but he calls himself Electron Love, and that's L-U-V at the end. Sorry, Electron Love with L-U-V at the end. And if you just Google Electron Love and click images, you'll start to cry. His amps are so beautiful. And he dropped out of high school, and I hadn't seen him for years. Then I came across his amplifiers online, and I started crying because these things were so gorgeous.
Mm.
And but I got a hold of him and just begged him to build me an amplifier. And it took, like 2 years or something of me just begging him every week. And he built it, and it's insane. It's just the craziest thing ever. The speakers are from an old Hammond organ. The tubes are these really, really rare old World War II vacuum tubes. Yeah, I smashed one of the tubes once. This was like 12. I've had it for maybe like 10 or 12 years. Smashed one of the tubes when I first got it. I dropped it, and I was able to find a replacement for like $500.
Damn.
But I looked up now. Now I think that same tube costs like $1,000 or more just for one of these tubes.
Damn.
But there's a Chinese made replacement that'll work too. So
Gotcha.
I'm not totally in trouble if I break one.
So like, do you feel like those specific like the tubes and all that, like what are you getting out of the sound that I mean, like obviously it's a very special amp for a gazillion reasons, but like how would you describe the sound and like what it does for you?
Well, what I love specifically about my amp is it seems to have, whenever I try any other amp nowadays, it feels like I'm only getting the higher frequencies.
Okay.
There's just so much brightness, but this one fills it in even down lower. So I feel like it's kind of a darker amp, and I've really grown accustomed to that and comfortable with that. And even on some other amps that I try that sound all bright to my ears, even if I turn the treble way down, it just gets quieter. Like I'm kind of missing some of those lower frequencies. At least that's how it is in my mind. I don't know if that's 100% accurate,
Mm-hmm.
but I love this amplifier. It just sounds really big and full voiced.
Mm-hmm. Do you are you the type of guy that rolls off your tone knob, or do you have a tone knob on that guy?
Yes, I do have a tone knob. There's volume, tone on this old Jarman pickup.
Nice.
I no, I actually I don't find myself rolling the tone off, believe it or not,
Mm-hmm.
because I probably would if I was playing another amp. But since my amp's already kind of on the dark side, I don't find myself rolling off the tone.
I find that
I do roll back the volume quite a bit, and
mm,
I think most volume pots do kind of roll off the tone as you roll the volume off,
okay, yeah, that makes
and
sense.
so that does darken up my tone a little bit. When I want to pluck really hard and I turn the volume down like 3 or 4 notches, I think that I think that darkens the tone a little bit.
I went through like a phase briefly of being in the Church of Metheny and like just like sort of worshiping Pat Metheny's sound and like I was like always so rolled off and like so dark and like everything sounds like this and realized then eventually everybody's gonna be like I can't hear anything you're doing, it sounds muddy, but uh, yeah. Dude, I should show you my new axe, which is hidden
Oh yeah,
behind this wall. Because
yes.
again, very diametrically opposed to you. Hang on. So I'm not ashamed of it. I am now a seven-string player, and I am a headless seven-string player. Yeah, so it's a Strandberg, one of these guys.
What is what is that thing?
The maker is Strandberg. It's funny they stylize it dot Strandberg like all lowercase and then an asterisk. So it's like it looks very kind of like computer codey, moderny. Yeah, it's I love this thing because it's like
Like,
very very active pickups. The bridge locks like I only tune this guitar like once every few weeks basically. And I'm kind of like I love this like Holdsworth sort of vibe of like playing a space guitar where it's like there's no headstock. Um, but maybe
wow.
I really like I love that it's extended range so I can actually comfortably hit the 24th fret and then the frets are slanted just a little bit which like
Oh, whoa.
it's multi-scale or whatever so the intonation I find is a lot better than I'm used to with like my Strat or my Les Paul. um, yeah.
Oh, wow. That's a big deal. How many frets did you say it has?
24 and then seven strings
Oh, cool. You
so
got
I
the
can play
two
corn.
full octaves. That's awesome. You know, here's something that I've learned lately about intonation. New strings fix a lot of intonation problems. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's because those damn divots from pressing the strings down.
That
But
makes sense.
also, newer strings help me a lot with intonation, and they help me a lot with the signal to noise ratio is a lot better with newer
Mm,
strings, especially on these thicker. I think I'm using 12s, nickel wound 12s,
nice.
and so for those two reasons alone, I always try to have new strings on at least every couple of weeks, at least,
Hmm. Yeah, this thing is a pain in the ass to
if not even.
restring, but that's the
I
only
know,
downside. Um, cool, man. Yeah,
but my intonation sucks, and so that's where you have the fan frets. That probably helps a lot.
yeah. Um, it's interesting. I mean, just like it feels nice to play. The pickups are so active, though. It's kind of crazy. Like, you always have to have it rolled off because otherwise it's just. But that's good for my for death metal stuff. Uh,
Ah! Do you play death metal songs?
Yeah, I
Do
mean the
you?
the project I'm working on is a sort of like maybe it's not death metal, but it's like it's pretty heavy evil sounding music. So
Like distorted? Like you totally distort? Oh,
blast beats and the whole thing. Yeah. Um,
that is awesome.
yeah, dude.
No way.
Let me set this down. See here. What was I gonna ask? See here. We talked about favorite guitarists. You so I mean you do stuff with like the bow and I'm curious about that. Like, I mean, I guess like I've always just been like, it's not going to work, but then like obviously it does for Rose or whoever. Like the few guitarists that use a bow. What's your whole thing with that?
Oh, that's the thing. Like, remember they? they came, Stevie Rose came and played at Walt Disney Concert Hall a few years ago, and it seemed like a lot of my friends went, and a lot of people were posting videos of that guy using the bow. And that's the day I went out and bought a bow. I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. And I knew Jimmy Page used a bow. So like 2 or 3 years ago, I think, after I saw all those little videos my friends posted of Stevie Rose playing at Walt Disney Concert Hall, I went out and bought a bow, and I just instantly fell in love. And I haven't put the bow down since. And I can't even, I'm probably the world's shittiest bow user, but I just love it so much. And now I got a reverb pedal with an expression pedal attached to it. And I can do these reverb swells. So I can hit a note and then let the note ring out.
Nice.
And I love to do that. That's kind of my thing now.
So do you use like an upright bass bow, or is it a violin bow, or is there a specific type to?
I got a violin bow, and it's just kind of a student bow.
Mm-hmm.
I got for maybe like $100 or something at Los Angeles Violin Shop in Koreatown on Olympic. And I've probably bought like 10 bows since then.
Oh, wow.
Just kind of mess around. I've tried cello, viola, student size, full size. And I think what I finally settled on is just a regular full size violin bow. It's the most comfortable for me.
Nice.
I think that's what this is. I was messing around so much that I can't remember if this is like a viola or violin bow. It's probably a full size violin bow.
Gotcha. Do you, like, when you use it, are you hitting all 6 strings, or do you find yourself like trying to, like, bend it so you're like, like, or how, like, what does that look like on a practical
No,
level?
I kind of, since the guitar is arched just a little bit, from 6th string to 1st string, there is a little bit of an arch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't usually hit all 6 strings, but I'll hit like the low, for fun chords. I can hit like the low 3 strings all at once, maybe the low 4 strings all at once. And I love to do high double stops, so it's really easy to hit 2 strings up high. I find myself muting unwanted strings a lot. And it's really easy to hit my 1st string, of course, because or just my 6th string or just my 1st string are the easiest to hit, because I can get an angle. And so I find myself doing a lot of melodies on just the 1st string. But it's fun to do 2 string stuff too, so the 1st and 2nd string.
Gotcha.
And I can kind of do a rake sort of blanc, get all 6 strings, but it's hard to get them all at once just because there is still a little bit of a, I feel like there is a little bit of a curve to the way the strings are.
Gotcha. You said you're using round wounds, right? Or are you using flatties?
Yeah, I'm using round wounds. And I talked to the violin guy about that, and I can't remember what he said, but now that I think about it, violin strings are usually, seems like they're usually flat wounds, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know, but the bow picks up round wounds really nice, believe it or not.
Are there any other like weird like tricks in your tool bag, like the bow or like the cell phone thing? Like what? I mean, while I don't want you to divulge any secrets unnecessarily, I'm curious to get ideas myself.
I find myself using the side of my, because I'm always holding my phone, and then when I want to do some crazy chord, I find myself just grabbing the side of my phone and just like scratching the guitar like this. Using the side of my phone to scratch the guitar. I'm into scratchy stuff, and this is my only pick that I even own in life. I have one pick.
That one pick?
I've had this for years. Yeah. I think I had it made.
Specific one?
This is JP.
You're talking about that specific one?
Yeah, I just have this one exact pick.
Damn.
What?
Yeah, I'm just impressed that you haven't lost it or misplaced it or anything. I feel like I have.
I know. That's the thing. Back when I used to have tons of picks, I'd drop them and lose them all the time. I just grab a new one. There's something about just having one pick. You never lose it if it's your only one. And so sometimes I'll drop it, and then I'll go the rest of the show with just my fingers. I love guitarists that just use their fingers, by the way. Mm-hmm. I always have. But I use this big old giant weird thick, like, I think some people call these a bass pick. It's that huge size, and it's really thick. But I like to use the side of the pick and scratch like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like doing stuff like that. It sounds really sloppy. Um, but my musical journey and like sort of like my chopsy journey the last several years, for better or for worse, I've honestly just been trying to do less and less in terms of
Mm-hmm.
difficult things. A, because I kind of suck at difficult stuff, and B, I'm just trying to be as expressive as possible. And I just have a hard time expressing myself doing like a string of eighth notes or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. I just feel like that's not me. And I feel like if I do some crazy scratchy sound that kind of sounds kind of like a scream or something, I feel like I could relate to that a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I don't know.
Does somebody like Pat
It's
Martino,
hard. It's
does his playing do anything for you? I mean, not to.
actually, yes. I love Pepper Theater. Yeah, no, those guys that can do a line and make
Mm-hmm.
it sound gorgeous like that. I love I love Pat Martino, and I love Pat Metheny, and I love all those guys.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, lately for the last years or so, I just, you know, I'll even sit down and try to transcribe those guys, play their licks in different keys and everything. But I just have a hard time playing the guitar normal. I have a hard time kind of connecting to that with my heart.
Yeah,
Can't
yeah.
quite, can't quite. I don't know if it's because I just can't quite do a good job at it or what, but
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of given up.
A while ago, I was like setting out to be like kind of like the weirdest, like I was calling it the most orthogonal guitarist in LA. Like I want to sort of do the most like atypical things, but I feel like I might not be able to beat you on this. So you're very much doing your own thing, and it's awesome. I mean, yeah, like it's really interesting because it's such a departure from like you know, as somebody who like went to music school, and it's like you have to learn this, you have to do this, and it's very like very have to, and like I feel like your style is very liberated. So I applaud you for that. um, I'm curious to hear more about the projections that you like that dude that you're collaborating with for the projections. So, like, is he coming up with stuff ahead of time that pairs with your music, or is it like in any way connected to your music? Like, is there any like is it generated based on the frequency spectrum of what you're doing or something?
Well, sometimes we'll have a theme for the concert, like it'll be called of like a name of the show, like the last one we did was out at Giant Rock in the desert. We snuck out there, and it was called an attempt at contact. And so, but Ryan, the guy who does the art, calls himself Projected Visions. He he has an iPad, and he has apps where he'll just paint using his fingers on the iPad, and that's mainly what he does. Mostly just these instantaneous finger drawings on his iPad. And as I'm describing that, it sounds like that would look kind of stupid, these little squiggles on an iPad. But this guy is able to, there's so much life
Mm-hmm.
in what he does, and so much emotion, and so much, it's overwhelming. Like it's what he does with his fingers on that damn iPad is just, it's incredible. It's it's out of this world. And his favorite thing to do is he just goes out into nature and just projects like on a rock or something, and just tries to make these neat little light designs, and then they
Interesting.
start kind of moving a little bit. And so he's super influenced, I think, by nature and water ripples and leaves. But
Nice.
what he's able to do live while we're playing, and so he's improvising. I would say it's like 90. To me, it feels like what he's doing is 90% improvisation, like even more improvisation than what I'm doing, I'd say.
Mm. So is it like, I mean, do you feel like his input, like his creative input, is what you're doing, or is it kind of like he's doing it? Like, do you feel like it's a pairing, or is it like a an interaction?
It's well, usually I'm not facing what he's doing, so
Hmm.
I don't get to see it. So, but I think he's reacting. I know that he's reacting
Hmm.
super, super, super intensely with the music,
Nice.
and and uh, and not so much the other way around, just because I'm facing the other way. But
Hmm.
I mean, just being in the same area as somebody that's that creative, just to know that that's going on is super, super, super inspiring to me. Even if I'm not like watching exactly what he's doing. But sometimes we'll turn around
Hmm.
and then try to. Sometimes we'll turn around and stare at what he's doing and try to make musical little notes and stuff that match what he's doing, and that's actually really cool.
Oh yeah. When you were talking about influences earlier, I was thinking about Anthony Braxton. I was curious if you are into Anthony's music.
Oh, I've just heard a lot. I've just heard a little bit of him, but not a lot.
Because he does all those like graphical scores, where like I saw him sometime a few years ago downtown, and like I was right behind him, and the score is like little diamonds and squiggles and stuff, and it's like it's so refreshing to see a departure from notation and like that whole world.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Anyway, I feel like you would vibe with him because super creative dude, very sort of free and you know expressive and all that. But let's see here. What other things are there? What are you influenced by outside of music? Like sort of anything else in culture that gets you riled up in a positive way, that is.
Um,
Literature or
besides,
films or.
besides music. Well, during the whole pandemic, I watched a lot of TV, and I guess this is very music related. I I did love the I love modern TV scores. I love all the creative things composers are doing on TV shows now because they have all these orchestras in their computers and stuff. And I'm just blown away with some of these composers what they're able to do these days.
Hmm.
So, and I love to watch TV. So I've been super influenced by that. I guess that's music related, but and when I'm driving around, I like listening to the straight ahead classical station. And so like even though I'm into like I prefer to be listening to like modern classical, but I'm stoked if I hear like some I don't know like I don't know. I mean, it's funny. I listen to hours and hours a day of regular classical music, like Mendelssohn and Brahms, Chopin. Then if I'm lucky, maybe some Ravel or Debussy. I just love that stuff. I know it's so conservative, but
Yeah.
damn, I love it. I do. I love it. But non-music, I this is embarrassing, but I love also watched like every single basketball game I could during the pandemic.
Interesting. Okay.
And I got super, 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 super into NBA basketball this last year. And the Utah Jazz is my team because I'm from Salt Lake City.
Hmm.
And so it was so fun to watch those guys play because they don't really have any superstars. And they had to kind of, but ended up with the league's best record. And their coach is kind of this crazy cocaine addict.
Okay.
And yeah, and he's crazy. And he has like a backwards philosophy. Like he yells at his guys for not shooting it. Like he just you could hear him shouting from the side of the court, shoot the ball, shoot faster. like like I don't know. It's been fun to watch the Jazz this year.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds anarchic as well. Like, um, interesting. So you mentioned Morton Feldman earlier, and I've been thinking about him because I'm gonna do this like little presentation on like really really long music because I think that's like an interesting thing. Like and with him doing like 6 hour like string quartets and all that. Like, I remember I had this professor in college, and he was like, "Yeah, we would go to see Morton Feldman's music, and you know, like basically people would trickle out bit by bit, and like the only people left were like the Zen monks, basically." So how like what's your listening to him like? Because that's like not easy listening. That's like a you're sitting there listening to like a long ass thing.
I don't remember how I got into him, but my favorite piece by him is this one that's called Durations for
Mm-hmm.
tuba, piano, and viola, I think. And it sounds like the funniest combination of three instruments, but I don't, it's just instantly when I heard it, it was just like the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard in my life. And it
Mm-hmm.
probably still is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard in my life. And it's just each instrument just playing these long tones, basically, seemingly random long tones, but it just has such a strong emotional impact.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always loved how minimal he is too. Like there'll be a big long moment of silence, and then maybe a note will barely start, and it'll just get silent again. And then maybe a note will start to come in a little bit. I just thought that was really exciting and super minimal,
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Man, I found these conversations on YouTube that if you haven't heard them, I suggest them. It's basically Morton Feldman talking to John Cage, and like they're like hour long conversations where they're just kind of like it's I feel like it has a very sort of dorm roomy like maybe like a little stony quality to it, and like you know they're just like talking about aesthetics and like they have such a clear appreciation for each other. Which is
Whoa.
funny. I think like Martin Feldman seems like this very like loud, big guy, and you know, John Cage is such a sensitive like you know, person. And I also saw a video of like I guess like Martin Feldman talking about you know how we need like really long music, and then Elliot Carter and friends sort of scoffing at him. And I'm a big Elliot Carter fan, but like it's so interesting that like why would you scoff at Martin Feldman for wanting to do 6 hour long music? That's a really
Oh,
um,
I can't wait to check those out. Oh my
yeah, they're
gosh.
great. Um, yeah. What else?
One of my that reminds me, one of my favorite things that I found on YouTube was like it was Glenn Gould
Mm,
recording at some studio in New York. And this was like his most famous recording he's ever done or something. But it's just the reels, you know, it just keeps going. It's just the recording. And he is so calm and gentle.
interesting.
And here he was recording, I can't remember what it was exactly, but possibly, you know, one of the greatest recordings ever made on earth. And I would expect him just to be a total dick in the studio, like all like, ah. But no, he's so relaxed, so calm, so gentle. Just spoke to the engineering booth in a very soft voice, like, "Hey, maybe we could try that again. I'd like to give it, you know, super polite." I could not believe it.
Interesting. I'll have to scope that out. Um, yeah, it's interesting when you get a little window into uh, how people are in real life. Um, you know.
I know. There's one of there's another tape like that. It's called like the reels of Miles Davis recording with his second quintet. And that is so fun to listen to. Like what he tells his bandmates and stuff. Just gonna check out my car, make sure
For sure.
things okay. Yeah.
I feel like
Um,
yeah.
it was that's also one of my favorite things I've come across. Just like the 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 session tapes or whatever of Miles Davis with those guys.
Is that where his like voice is all raspy and shit?
Yeah,
Uh,
and I can't remember what he says,
yeah.
but he just interacts with his band in like the funniest way ever. And and you know they all respect him. You know he's their hero. That's it. That I was. I'm always blown away by that band with you know Ron Carter, Tony Williams.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man.
That's just every time I hear that, I'm always just blown away. I'm like, that's as like as good as jazz gets right there.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
always think that.
Tony Williams.
Like
Ooh.
I hear some newer jazz band, newer quartet. I'm like, no, this that that was better.
Yeah, it had like grit and it was raw, but it was like so adventurous and virtuosic at the same time. So I imagine in your groups, you're as a leader, you're a total taskmaster and a meanie, right?
Oh man, guess what?
Mm.
I Vanessa, my sweetheart, was teasing me about this the other day. She thinks that in elementary school, I probably got that check, that box check that says like does not work well with others. I don't work well with others. I'm a sucky communicator. I
Mm.
get mad. I do get mad on the bandstand. Somebody messes up. So I've been going more and more minimal lately, and lately I've been doing solo.
Mhm.
I just
So
can't.
yeah.
I can't work with guys anymore. I just can't. But my main there's just three guys that I play with still. One's Derek who plays keyboards, and he's out of this world, wonderful, creative. He loves to do little sounds and noises. And then there's Logan Hone on saxophone, who I love so much dearly, and Jesse QT on drums, and I also love him so much. And so I'll do duos with those guys sometimes, but I'm sure they don't. I'm sure they all have. I'm sure it's not like the easiest thing for them to do with me. Just I'm not very good at working with people, so I prefer to go solo. So I don't. 'Cause I don't know. Otherwise, I feel like a jerk.
Hmm.
And,
Um,
and, and like lately, I finally have the courage to go solo too. Like I never had the courage to do a show by myself, but finally I have the courage to do that. And just kind of that's kind of the direction I'm headed is just to play by myself. It feels a little bit better.
Totally. Yeah, and I feel like yeah, that's like a whole thing for guitarists. Like, and it's funny because there's like the I'm gonna play the chord melody of all these standards and like that whole thing, but like I feel like you're armed with a different tool set that is actually probably like better for solo playing. Like, because like nobody wants to hear somebody walk bass on guitar while comping for themselves. Like, fuck that. Like, I hate that. Like, it's just tedious because like why do you want to hear somebody that doesn't specialize in walking bass do a bad job of walking bass and comping for themselves? Yeah, I'm a hater. Um,
Oh, that's hilarious.
um, let's see here. So yeah, I mean, okay, so you're mostly doing solo stuff now. Interesting. Cool. Well, we should do some
And
duets stuff sometime.
I would love to jam sometime. We should. If we've been talking about it, we
Mhm.
absolutely should. Um, the other thing about going solo or duo, like each of those guys I admire. I didn't mean to. I'm only trashing myself in saying that it's difficult to go duo,
Mhm.
but because they're all just beautiful, amazing. But I'm the one who cares about my music more than anybody else on earth, and it's unfair to ask somebody else to care about it as much as I do. So it just makes more sense to me lately
Mhm.
to go solo.
Man, like getting back into guitar and going on YouTube and seeing like the landscape out there, it's interesting because like a lot of the time it's like, oh, here's the playthrough video, and it's like these guitarists sitting there at a chair with their MIDI files, and like I just feel like there's this phenomenon of the guitarist that's alone with their MIDIs, like in a room, just playing along with a synthetic band, and like so I think that maybe that's like a guitarist thing, just kind of like not knowing how to like when I was in music school, it was like the guitar program was its own thing, and like there was a jazz studies program and then jazz guitar. And yeah, I feel like it's a fundamental thing about guitarists that they don't know how to connect with other musicians. But it's unfortunate.
Yeah. I
Um,
love those flamenco dudes. Holy freak. And classical guitar players.
are you hip
But
to Adam Del Monte?
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Um
I think he's still in LA. He's disgustingly
trying to
good at
think.
guitar.
No, I'll get hip to him again if I'm not. That rings a bell, but I can't quite remember.
He's an utter beast. It's ridiculous. Yeah, and I mean, like, I appreciate that he does flamenco, but like he sort of blends in other stuff in a not
Oh, cool.
corny way. But, so are you doing any like gigs with various ensembles or by yourself or anything like that in the near future that you want to tell anybody about to get the word out there to a
No,
small audience?
nothing specific, but very, very soon, if you keep an eye out, my Instagram is JP underscore orchestra. That's kind of my main outlet. That's where I post everything. But if you keep your eyes open, I'll post something soon, like an LA River show soon, really soon.
Awesome.
But I'm always out here. Usually every other week or so, there's something coming up. But it just so happens that right at this moment, I don't have anything actually scheduled.
How
But I'm always doing bar shows and restaurant shows every week.
word. How loud are you able to get down there?
Oh, as loud as we want, as loud as our equipment will go. I bought an Italian speaker, and it's a 15-inch powered speaker. That that thing can go pretty loud. It just goes loud. We go as loud as we possibly can, and nobody. I don't think we've ever disturbed anybody who's trying to sleep or anything, like, because we're kind of down here in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Word. I guess one of the last things I'll ask that I've asked you before, and I feel like you've uh, maybe like been like, oh yeah, like that. But I feel like you have such a joyful, sunny disposition. I'm curious what your secret is. Uh, you know, it's like being happy and joyful and like excited by being creative. Like that's like I feel like a lost perspective these days. So like,
Whoa! Oh my gosh! Thank you for saying that.
of course,
It's I feel like every day is like every single moment of every single day is nothing short of just war in my mind. I just have to fight so hard for everything. I get jealous a lot. I feel angry a lot. I feel frustrated a lot.
hmm.
So for you to say that makes me feel really happy, and I'm I'm glad you say that.
Yeah, man.
But you must always catch me at the good times because it's hard. It's so hard to play, especially trying to play kind of weird at like restaurants and stuff. There's a lot of haters, and
Mm,
it's hard. It's just like really, 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 really draining.
damn.
So for you to say that, thank you for saying that.
Of
But I
course,
don't
man.
know. I don't necessarily feel that way. I feel like life is really, really, really hard. And so if
Yeah.
somebody says something like that, or if somebody appreciates my music, then I'm totally stoked.
Yeah,
And
man.
I've always been stoked to see you because freaking amazing musician. My probably my top five favorite musicians on earth, I would say.
Wow. Wow.
So I'm probably just always stoked to see you.
Well, yeah, I mean, working in coffee and like seeing you pop in, it's always a nice surprise. Um, yeah, man. Well, cool. We're past an hour, and I guess I won't keep you too
Okay.
much longer unless do you have anything you want to chat about? I don't have anything to do beyond this. Like I don't have
No,
anywhere to go, but if you
I
want
mean,
to chat at me,
no, that's cool. Thank you for reaching out. I was
yeah,
really
dude.
excited to hear from you. And I was about to just do this from home, but I was like, no, I'm going to go down to the river because that's like
Yeah, no, this is
my
perfect.
favorite thing to do.
Yeah, man. Well, hopefully, death metal and JPO show at the river sometime.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
uh, weird dictionary only and weird explosive sort of synergy of some sort to have happen. Yeah.
Cool.
So you mentioned your Instagram. Is there any other place that people can find you on the internet?
No, really, that's just my only thing right now. I have like some reels posted of like full songs. Just my feed kind of has little snippets of stuff. It's kind of my main outlet, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Rad. Cool. All right, man. Well, Joshua Payne, thanks so much for joining me. I'll see
Thanks,
you in the
Josh.
future.
Okay, rock on. Talk to you very soon.
Sounds good.
Okay, bye bye.
Peace.